So welcome to 1 Million Cups. Um, Happy New Year. It's 2016. So listen, let's go ahead and get started. I want to welcome any of our first-time visitors. Can I see who's here maybe for the first time today? All right, well, listen, welcome. Thank you for braving the weather, the ice storm out there going on, um, and coming out. Can I see a show of hands of any of our veterans that have been here with us almost every week? I see one, two, maybe three. All right, welcome, Ben. Glad to see you. All right, well, listen, for those of you that are here for the first time, 1 Million Cups is a weekly entrepreneurship program. Essentially, we have two presenters come and they'll tell us their story about their journey. They'll speak for about 6 minutes. And essentially, after that, we'll open it up to the audience for a Q&A for maybe about 15 to 20 minutes. My name is Milton. I'm one of the organizers, and I'm also here with Courtney and Britton, some of our other organizers. And I think today, afterwards, we're going to be talking to some folks about maybe coming on board. So if you're here today for the meeting afterwards if you're considering joining the group as an organizer, we'd love to talk to you. I think Courtney's going to speak a little bit more later on about that. So to kick things off, we're going to get started. We're going to welcome Jeff Blackwood to the stage to come and talk to us about AB Pathfinder. Welcome, Jeff. Let's give him a round of applause.
All right, thanks, guys. Is this working okay? Do I have it up high enough, Dave? Good? Well, hi, everybody. So Jeff Blackwood with AB Pathfinder. So I'm actually a return presenter. When I first presented here was about 4 years ago, 2012, when we were actually over in the lab side of things. There were about 12 people in the room at that point. So we got just a few more this time, unfortunately because of the weather. But very happy to be kicking off the 2016 season for the 1 Million Cups group. AB Pathfinder. I'm going to ask you here for a little audience participation in just a second, but AB Pathfinder is a company that creates software for autism therapy centers. So we work with therapy centers across the country, and we help them try and improve and be more effective in how they work with kids with autism. So now's the audience participation part. I want you to hold your hands up for just a second and look around. If you either have a child or know somebody with a child with autism. So if you look around, you kind of get an impression of where we are. I anticipate that about 90% of the hands in the room are going to go up because that's the degree to which autism has started to affect our society. So many people know a child or know a family with a child with autism that it's really creating a large impact on what's happening in our society. In fact, as of the latest poll here about 2 months ago with the CDC, the incidence is 1 in about 45 kids being born today. That's 70,000 kids per year. And that's more than the combined incidence of childhood cancer, diabetes, and AIDS. All together, it's having that much of an impact on us. To the point where there was a big announcement yesterday when one of the presidential candidates came out with their plan for how they're going to address autism. It's a huge deal for them. But I'm going to tell you about just one of those kids. This is a kid named Jeremy. It's not his real name. I'm just using that for the sake of this. But he's a kid that was in my Cub Scout den. And he's kind of the genesis story of why we started at AB Pathfinder to begin with. You see, Jeremy was in my Cub Scout den. I saw him when he was 7. He could be in school, he could go to Cub Scouts, he could go out camping with us. He still had some challenges, but at least he was able to be part of society. Well, I found out though, when he was 2 years old, he was completely in a shell. He was very non-communicative. He was what was considered low on the autism spectrum. He wasn't able to talk to his parents, they couldn't talk to him. And it was through intensive autism therapy that he got to the point where I got to see him 5 years later, and he could actually be part of society. And without that intensive therapy, he would have still been in that shell. So it's amazing what therapy can do for these kids. The type of therapy that he received is what's called applied behavior analysis. It's very much a one-on-one, individualized therapy with each of these kids that are low functioning on the spectrum. It can last up to 30 hours per week. And it's as simple as interactions of, here, touch the clicker. He either touched the clicker, he didn't touch the clicker. Every time I do that little interaction with him, what color's my sweater? Is it gray or is it not gray? Every little interaction that I do with that kid during the day is one more point of data that I have to take on how that child is progressing. The multitude of those points of data, and you're talking hundreds of those per day, is what then gets put onto a piece of graph paper later on saying, okay, 70% of the time, Jeremy got gray. 20% of the time he touched the clicker. So it's data, data, data. It's very much an evidence-based therapy methodology, but it's also a ton of paper. When I went to the therapy center that Jeremy had gotten his therapy from, that was the first thing I noticed. Stacks of paper, 3-ring binders everywhere. These people are drowning in paperwork. Because you can't just go into something like that without a plan. So they first have to set up the plan for the child. Once they get the plan in place, they then go and collect the data. How did he do on each of those little trials that we did with him during the day? Given that they've done that, now we have to put it on the graph paper later on, and only then do we have the information that we can tell what's his next step going to be. How do we then analyze him moving forward? So they're buried in paperwork. That paperwork is hindering their ability to deal with this overwhelming load of new kids that are coming in needing this kind of treatment today. And that's why we created AB Pathfinder. Our goal was to take all of that stuff off paper, put it into our software, help them analyze that information, and then make them more efficient in how they work with these kids. To the point where our initial studies showed that we saw their administrative workload cut in half. So that means they could help that many more kids on the back end. But just as importantly, we did a study with the University of Kansas here in 2012 that showed that those kids who received therapy from teams using our software actually gained skills about 20% faster than those who didn't. Now project that out over the lifetime of this child, that can make an enormous impact on how they're performing. And that's exactly the kind of thing that we wanted to see from our software. On the back end, big data is a huge buzzword right now, but we are truly a big data player as well, because we are able to aggregate all of the data that we collect from these therapy centers across the country and use that for research purposes, for working with insurance companies to ensure pay-for-performance models go into effect. We have access to the information that is needed to make sure that autism care across the country is being improved for these children. Because of that, we won awards. We got the Cool Tool Award from the EdTech Digest Group last year, and we won the Microsoft Health Innovation Award for Analytics this last year. But beyond the incidents, there are other factors now that are affecting our business. So it's what I call the 3 I's. Obviously the incidents piece, but insurance. Imagine how much one-on-one therapy for a child, 30 hours a week, costs. You're looking anywhere from $50,000, $80,000, $100,000. A lot of that was private pay. Some of that went to Medicare. Luckily we had, at least in the state of Kansas, we have the Medicare waiver that waives any income requirements so that Medicare can help out with this cost. But now, over the last few years, and a lot of work from a lot of great people, including Autism Speaks, 46 of the 50 states now have legislation in place that require insurance coverage. So that means there's money coming in this space to try and help with this therapy methodology. On top of that, though, there's investment coming in, too. Not just from venture capital groups investing like companies like AB Pathfinder, but also investing in buying autism therapy centers and helping them build their models out. But even more importantly, behavioral health centers are now starting to see what's going on in the space, and they're coming in, putting in centers themselves, buying up different therapy centers. So there's a lot of things going on in the space that are starting to grow it and really get the care that these kids need. So, seeing that, we have actually been making moves ourselves. So where we're on the data collection, analytics, and outcome measure side, we're actually in the process now, I had hoped that by this meeting it would have been done, but it's dragging out a little bit, of acquiring another company that does the practice management side of things, the scheduling, the billing, and invoicing. And through the combination of the companies, we're going to have an all-in-one solution for a therapy center, where they can come to us and get everything they need, from the scheduling of the therapy to the collection of the data, all the way back to the insurance progress reports that they need to show that they're being effective for these kids. I would also hoped that our logo would have been done by now, because we're rebranding the company. You may have noticed in the notes that the new company name is Pathfinder Health Innovations. I would put the logo right there if it had been done, but it's not. So we got a great team in place too. I'm the CEO, 20-year veteran of technology, sales, and marketing, pipeline innovator. I was with the Startup Health Group as a healthcare transformer. I was in the Tech Week 100 here in this last year when they came into town. Anne is coming to us from the company that we're acquiring. She's going to become my COO. Probably the most knowledgeable person I've ever met with how to do insurance coding, how does it work for an autism therapy center. She was the CEO of a therapy center before becoming the CEO of Insure Billing too. And she's on the Arizona Governor's Autism Coalition too. So very knowledgeable about insurance billing, about legislation and other aspects of it. David just joined us here a little while ago from Cerner and from Blue Cross Blue Shield as our CTO. And Catherine is our VP of Sales and Marketing, who has a background in behavioral healthcare sales. And then we're backed by some great companies too. Dundee Venture Capital up in Omaha has been working with us for a few years. FCA Venture Partners is one of the top healthcare innovation venture firms in the country. They're based in Nashville. And then a few other groups, Tonic out of Northwest Arkansas as well. So what traction have we gotten? Well, we're going to kick off 2016 now with about 128 therapy centers across the country, including prominent names like Cleveland Clinic, TheraCare, Community Intervention Services. Florida Institute of Technology is kind of a cool one because that's the top school in the country for the behavior therapists that are going through it. So they're actually training behavior therapists, and they're going to be using our software to help train those people before they get into the therapy field. Usually this is at the very end of the whole thing. I'm going to go ahead and throw it in now if that's okay, but it's the whole what do we want thing. Obviously, anybody that comes up here will say the same three things: investors, advisors, or customers. So if you guys know any of those people, please let us know. More importantly, though, I think one of the things that I wanted to ask everybody here in the audience was, I always say that the greatest thing about being an entrepreneur is I get to pick the people I work with. Everybody that I work with works with us because of the passion they have for our mission. And I was going to put some stupid quote up here from the movie Almost Famous, but won't do that to you. It's really just that I wanted to say that this is a group of people here that's interested in business, interested in entrepreneurship. Just make sure you're doing it with passion, because it makes it so much different working with people that all believe in what you're doing, that all have the passion for what you're doing. And I encourage you, all of you, to go and find out what's best for you in that and do it with passion. Thank you very much.
So I'm going to open it up with a question. If anybody has a question for Jeff, please raise your hand and we'll come around with a mic. You mentioned we don't have a panel today.
All right.
I'm sure we could find some people from the audience to grill you, though.
That's cool.
Grant Gooding, he's in the back. No, I wanted to say, you mentioned right before you came up on stage that 3 years ago there were 12 people in the room when you presented at 1 Million Cups. Can you talk about your journey more from where you were then to today, your journey over the last 3 years?
Oh, geez. Well, I mean, everybody passes around the graphic that it's not the straight line growth that anybody happens to see. Holy crap, there's a lot of valleys. But it's one of those things where we continue to grow. We never hit the projections that we make. The second they hit the paper, they're worthless, which is unfortunate. You strive as much as you can for it. But I will say that we had a pretty significant stumble this year too. But with the backing of investors that believed in our mission, with a great team on board, we've really essentially turned the company around significantly since what happened earlier this year, to the point where we're just launching into 2016, and it's one of those every valley that comes, there's going to be another peak right after that. So you just got to keep going for it, and just keep trying.
Good advice. Okay.
Got
Milton?
a question here in the middle.
Hi. How do you integrate? My name is John Birch. I'm a member of the Mid-America Angels.
Yeah, hi, John.
How do you integrate this information that you collect with electronic medical records in general?
Sure. One of the things that we're doing with the integration of the two companies is we're starting in second quarter. We're going to begin the process of blending the two systems together, and we're going to have the capability of being an EMR system ourselves. There's a lot of EMR systems out there, though. So that's not going to be the end-all, be-all. We'll have that capability. And when Meaningful Use 3 comes out next year in 2017, it's truly an outcome-based measure. So we're going to be in a pretty unique position because we're built from the ground up as an outcome measures tool. That being said, we've got active APIs. We are going to be HL7 compliant. So we can work back and forth with EMR systems, providing the data that's collected at the clinical point of care right up into the EMR system itself and giving them unique insights to how the therapy performance is occurring.
Another question up front.
What were the things that came together to help you decide that this was a business that you wanted to get into? In other words, did you come from this field, or how did you identify the need that could be fulfilled by this business?
It was kind of a combination of things. David Nickel is in the audience with me here. Dave and I worked for a number of years together in a company that had a recurring revenue model. It was a subscription-based solution that was for the telecom industry. So I saw the value that a recurring revenue model, a subscription type of business, brought to the table. A little bit later in my career, I was in healthcare software consulting. So we worked with a number of organizations throughout the Kansas City area life sciences group, building software for them. Consulting revenue is up and down. So I knew that I wanted something that we could do that recurring revenue model with, and I had the tools in place as far as the development team that knew healthcare. So it was one of those things where we were kind of looking for where can we go and bring efficiencies that software can offer. And it would just happen to be the right tool, the right time. When I saw that therapy center that had all the paper, that therapy center was actually owned by someone that I got my MBA with over here at UMKC. And they wanted us to do a simple database project for them, but I saw that we could do so much more with the software. And that was kind of the genesis of it. We didn't actually reach the minimum viable product for probably another 2 years after that, because as you can imagine, paper and pencil is the most flexible tool that you could use. But we knew we had the tools in place, and we just kept working at it, kept building it, did proper market validation to begin with, knowing that it wasn't just that therapy center, but it's across the country, seeing the increase in incidents, seeing where things were going. It was just, we saw that there was a tidal wave coming, and we could catch it right on the front end.
Thank you. So the software is not directly a therapeutic tool. It helps the therapy to be administered.
Correct.
It helps the therapists, if I understand this correctly, to do their job better by taking some of the burden of administrative details or lessening the administrative burden,
Yep.
if that's correct. So can this then, everything you described doesn't actually, in terms of how your business developed, doesn't actually mention autism specifically. So the question I have is this replicable, if that's a word, with other diseases or other types of situations?
Absolutely. Yeah, and thank you for that question. Yeah, we built it to be flexible. We built it so that we could go into an autism therapy center and say, look, we're not going to change how you do therapy. You give us the protocols that you use, the skills that you use. We'll put those into our software for you. And we're simply a tool for you to administer the therapy that you're already great at doing. Doesn't have to be autism, though, and that's an excellent point. We can expand to other cognitive disorders out there. Applied behavior analysis, which is the data-centric, evidence-based type of therapy we primarily support, can be used in Alzheimer's care. It can be used in traumatic brain injury, in PTSD. We've already had conversations with the Veterans Administration on how we can work with those guys on PTSD and TBI cases. But we're also working with occupational therapists, speech and language therapists. There's a whole gamut of places that we can use this. It just has to be one where the outcome measure from the data is very important and very much a part of what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. So yes, we can.
Question in the back.
This is sort of a two-part question. The first part, what's your main sales channel? How do you plan on acquiring customers? Are you going to be out there, pounding the pavement? And related to that, the second part is you having a background in software sales is going to be hard for you. How do you plan on managing being the CEO? And then do you plan on doing some of the sales yourself? And how do you separate yourself from that and whenever you need to be running the business?
Well, I had a full head of hair when I started this. No, I'm kidding, I didn't. Yeah, no, obviously when you're starting off the business, yes, you're the primary salesperson, you're doing everything you can. I probably was that for 4 years until I realized that my ability to do the other aspects of the business was limiting my ability to go and sell, excuse me. So we got on direct salespeople. We had also worked with some channel partners, and the challenge that I saw with working with therapy centers as channel partners, Eden up in New Jersey is a perfect example of that, is this isn't their main focus of their business. They don't necessarily know how to, they can do therapy, but they don't necessarily know how to sell software and make other therapy centers more efficient. So we had challenges with channel partners. We continue to work with them, but we've just put all of our eggs in the basket of we're doing direct sales, and we're going out and hitting all of these therapy centers that we can.
Question in the back.
Yeah, this seems like are you looking at developing software for therapy? This is so labor intensive and seems a natural next iteration.
Well, this is actually used in the therapy process itself. Maybe I'm not understanding your question.
No, so that, you know, it could be supervised, but one person has 5 people getting therapy from the computer, interactive, instead of this one-on-one, incredibly labor intensive.
A direct relation with the individual receiving the therapy is what I believe you're asking about. Right now, no. There are a number of companies out there that have built software and tools like that, and we see those as data points that we can pull into our software. So we're working with a couple of organizations right now on, they've got the thing that helps the child communicate. We can take those data points, and that's part of the overall picture of how the child is performing on a day-to-day basis, and that's information that would be of value to the therapist. But our main goal has been, we don't pretend that we are a therapy team. While we have people on staff that are behavior therapists, we want to make sure that everybody feels that we are simply a tool to make them more efficient as a therapist, and we're not taking away the art and science of how they're working with the individualized child that they're working with.
Got a question here to your right. I'm curious a little bit more about your market segmentation. You started 2016, 128 customers. What does that translate into as far as your business model? Did you start it saying, oh my God, we only have 128? Or where does that fit into where you want to go, where you need to be?
Well, so to the gentleman's point here earlier about, where are we? I mean, autism is a finite space, obviously. Well, they're all finite spaces technically. It's a niche space within the overall behavioral health market of both the United States, but also internationally too. So there are about 4,000 autism therapy centers in the US, so we're really just kind of scratching the surface of autism therapy. As the behavioral health centers are starting to look at getting into the autism space because of the new funding that's there, we have the opportunity to immediately start expanding out into behavioral health. So that's where we see us going in the next couple of years, is we've got the focus on autism therapy. Now how do we start hitting other areas of behavioral health that are appropriate for us? And that's going to quadruple our market opportunity. So we're looking at about a $6 billion market opportunity when we look at the broader behavioral health space. And we're already seeing it with that. One of those logos that was up there was a company called Community Intervention Services. They're a subsidiary of South Bay Mental Health up in Boston, and they've got about 1,500 kids in their autism program. But if they like us well enough, they've got 37,000 patients in their overall behavioral health program that they could take us to, and we charge on a per patient basis. So there's a lot of opportunity there for us to work with these guys and expand that market.
Question back left.
Yep.
Your answer to some of the other questions has caused me to probe more deeply into the integration question.
Right.
I'm not sure what the age range is of autistic patients, but I assume it does include some adults, certainly, in which case you'll be dealing with multiple other kinds of diseases. So the integration, beyond just putting your data in an EMR, are you able to interrogate an EMR and to integrate all the comorbidities and everything with the therapy and plug into that kind of information for the use of the therapist?
I won't say that we are there today, but we do anticipate being able to do that. And you're right, autism in and of itself is not a life-limiting disorder. People can live to 70, 80 years with autism, and it is comorbid with other disorders, but in and of itself, you've got the whole lifespan of people to work with on there. So working with residential living centers is certainly a possibility. I've got a friend that's up in Nebraska that's doing a telehealth product for residential living centers. That's something that we could work with and integrate with their solution and try and see what kind of work we can do for the older population. Right now, though, the most money, the highest concentration of where everybody is working is in that early intervention space, the young kids that are anywhere from 3 to about 9 or 10 years old, and that's where we've, by necessity, had to focus so far. But we do anticipate working with the larger, older population as we need to.
Question on your very left.
I perceive from your presentation that you are in scale mode with this product, with this business.
I hope so.
And so you mentioned about I think I heard you say 4,000 autism centers, and then there's more behavioral centers. I don't know anything about this market, but that's what I heard you say.
Sure.
I'm curious, two parts on as you scale. Do you have to revalidate this product for the behavioral health center market before you go into that? And regardless of whether you do or not, help us understand your decision making on when you expand your focus beyond just the autism centers, so that you're not maybe missing the initial market to go after a secondary market. Walk us through that decision process, if you would.
Sure, and that's, and I appreciate the question. Yes, we do need to go and do market validation, because what we don't want to do is we don't want to dilute the existing work that we're doing in the autism space. We've got more than enough work to continue trying to pull in autism therapy centers where we are. The pivot point is going to be, really is coming with Meaningful Use 3 in 2017, and we're preparing for that now. The behavioral health centers are going to require that we be an EMR so that they can get paid through the Meaningful Use standards for purchasing the software. They won't do it otherwise. There's too many other options for them out there. The cool thing about it is, as I alluded to earlier, is Meaningful Use 3 is entirely about improving outcome measures. And most of the EMR systems out there, they probably started with a patient portal, or they started with a little bit of an insurance reimbursement piece. The outcome measures are, for a large part, a secondary aspect to it, where we're built from the ground up as an outcome measure tool. So we know that there is this event coming in 2017 that is going to, that will have an effect on the behavioral health centers that are looking at getting into the autism space. And we feel that we're in a unique position for that moving forward. So we're just future planning. We still need to go out and do the proper market validation, but we think we're seeing some of that coming in with organizations like Community Intervention Services that are coming into the space, and we're seeing that more and more every week that goes on. So we still have work to do. We've got a lot that's going on in the autism space, but we're pretty confident in the direction we're going with it.
Question on your right.
So, who's your customer?
Autism therapy centers, specifically the behavior therapists that are in there, BCBAs.
Okay, so have you mapped out the influencing path to sale? Because, like, just glance at your website, you're looking at therapy center schools and parents.
Yep.
Are you going to directly target the counselors in those therapy centers? And what's your go-to-market strategy in order to really exploit those people and punch them in the face so that they, because you got to change their behavior. I mean, that's, infinitely scalable software is always sexy for our investor friends in the room,
Yep.
but changing people's behavior is damn near impossible. So how do you plan to do that once you can actually figure out how to talk to them?
Well, so we believe we have figured out how to talk to them. The majority of the behavioral health center, or excuse me, the autism therapy centers are organizations that have been started by what are called BCBAs, Board Certified Behavior Analysts. These are people that have trained for therapy. They may or may not be the best business people, but there are very few therapy centers that actually have a business person component, which we can certainly talk to, of course. But the behavior therapists see the value in what we do. They know that they're dealing with this paperwork burden, and yeah, they may have moved on to a supervisory or to an executive role in an organization, but they've been there and they know the efficiencies that they need to realize within their organization. The worst case, they need the help on the insurance reimbursement side. They got to get paid somehow. And with the way that we're working with therapy centers, we know the elements that they need in order to get paid moving forward. It's going to be a different matter in the behavioral health sector. There are different groups of people that we have to talk to that probably autism therapy is a secondary role for them. And so we do have to change that pace, and that's part of the overall market validation that we're working on, is how do we get that conversation a little bit different with behavioral health centers.
So final question, I know you kind of already answered it, but what can we as a community do to help you?
You know, again, it's what everybody comes up here and asks for. If you guys, you know, we've got solid investor backing, but it's always great to talk to other people, strategic partners that are out there, and then, you know, potential customers that we're looking for. But again, I hope everybody takes away from this that, you know, the thing that's sustained us over the 6-year period that we've been working on this has been the passion of our employees. And I hope everybody can go out and work in something they're passionate in.
Great. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you, guys.
Couple of quick announcements before we get started with our second presenter. There is the first Kansas City Startup Happy Hour. Bob Specht is putting this together. That's happening tonight at Ruins Pub. So if you could, please join us and basically just get to know each other all a little bit better. Tomorrow at Think Big, there's Collisions and Coffee, which is also another fun event. And then on Friday, the Village Square is hosting their first Second Fridays. So another just general networking, no agenda, come hang out, get to know everybody a little bit better. Is Mark ready? Yes, okay. Okay, our second presenter was stuck in traffic a little bit this morning, so he is just getting set up. I will talk a little bit about, after he presents around 10:15, we're gonna go over in lab, so if anybody is interested in joining the 1 Million Cups organizing team, we'll go over there, kind of, we have a few questions just to get to know what your intentions are and how you can help our community a little bit better. So I guess join us over in labs. I wish Brian Azorski was here right now. He would have some really funny comments to make. I know, he's a lot more witty than I am. Are we ready?
Yeah.
Okay. I would like to welcome Mark Garius of ISH Cable Services.
Thank you. Good morning. Small background, been in the communications industry for 30 plus years. We're a small service-related company providing different levels of management services and inspection services to large owners, MSOs. The reason I'm here this morning is to talk about this wheel. The Smart Wheel is a system that have been developing that improves utility and communications construction projects by streamlining the construction process, streamlining quality control, quality assurance, which is the next level of inspection services. Instead of waiting for the end of the project and doing quality control, you want quality assurance. Our process is a live, real-time process for control and quality management. The Smart Wheel and other smart construction products streamline the construction process. I'm sorry. So that the owner can more accurately forecast the upcoming project and get the systems generating revenue and faster. AT&T, Google, Fiber, Charter, Verizon, Time Warner Cable have all announced large FTTP projects throughout the country over the next 10 years. Google's plan is to spend billions of dollars on these projects. AT&T and some of the other companies already use our services. As I said, we're already integral part of the project here in Kansas City and other places. Problem is that we're on the contractor end of it. We're not directly to Google as the inspection service company. Google has reached out to me, other companies have reached out to me, want a better system. We think that this system is that, this product, this system, this service is something that's needed, it's asked for, and we believe that this is a solution for the quality assurance problems that Google and other contracts or companies like AT&T and Charter and Time Warner are having. Basically, it's a way of improving and streamlining the process to get the product to market faster. Actually, that's all I had prepared for this morning. Like I said, this was I got notified that I was going to be here yesterday about 4 o'clock, so first time I've ever made a presentation to a large room like this. I'm sorry if I seemed a little thrown off, but I'm ready for any questions anybody might have about it.
Well, let me give a little background on that. So our other presenter came down with strep. So Mark actually stepped in for us yesterday, last minute, and is here this morning, drove an hour to get here. So we appreciate you being here. Let's give him a round of applause. Well, we do want to open it up to the audience for questions, but I think, do we have a question over here? Let's start with this gentleman, actually.
I wonder if you can tell me a little bit more about what your company does. I'm seeing, are you a cable locator? How does the quality assurance that you describe, what quality are you assuring, and at what industry does this take place in, and what services do you provide within the context of that industry?
The industry we serve is communications construction at this point. Myself personally and parts of the company have worked with not only communications, mostly AT&T, that's how I started. Moved into cable TV on certain occasions, but have mostly worked RUS Telecom, Rural Utility Services, and was part of the FTTP projects, the fiber to the home projects that the USDA started in 2009 with the grants to the electrical co-ops. So communications and fiber to the home is the basic industry that we serve. Second part of your question was, I'm sorry. Okay. Okay. What the services that I mainly provide, I have a small construction division that goes out and fixes the bigger companies. Like the Riley. I don't know how familiar anyone is with large utility construction companies here. When they go through a project, their main goal is to get, I don't think they need the pictures of the pipe, do we? All right. Their main goal is to get product in the ground, whether it's HDPE pipe or conduit or copper lines or fiber lines, okay? Secondary to them, then they know that as part of their process is to do the cleanup and make sure that, every one of you, when they go past their houses, your yards are fixed. Doesn't always happen, and generates a massive amount of complaints and a massive amount of backup as far as forward production goes. And when you're talking about thousands of miles of cable going in the ground every month, having to send a crew back to clean up somebody's yard that's upset because they didn't get their sod right is a problem. And it's the larger scale the problem, the larger that problem becomes, the more it slows down the forward production, the more the marketing people get upset because they can't get services to people and can't sell advertising. What we do is, Justin's one of my engineers, he goes out in the field as construction is going on. And he walks along with the construction companies and makes sure that, the vault that was supposed to be here according to design is where it's supposed to be. Make sure that they're putting in the pipe in the ground to the right depth. Make sure that that when all the pipe is in the ground, all the vaults, all the cabinets are done, everything's connected, all the fiber's placed, that someone comes back and does some cleanup. Unfortunately, when you're doing 65 miles a week, you can't have somebody standing there on every single inch of that plant, and stuff gets missed, okay? The process that we've started now is we go back after the construction supervisor, someone such as Justin, goes through and makes sure that everything gets put in the ground, they send back a validation team, all right? And we provide validation to the EPC contractor on the Google project here, and we've done some on RUS, and we're working with a small telecom south of here near Lacine, Kansas. The validation team goes back through, and this is where this comes into play, okay? This is an integrated system that does a better job of measuring than the old wheels. It's a digital wheel. It will integrate with, and we are still in development on this, but the entire route will be photographed or videotaped with a GPS-enabled camera. The transmission from the wheel to the Nexus tablet will transmit to a database, and that database will be live. Show that if you can. The database will be live so that the customer, say, in San Jose, wants to see how much product got in the ground today and what it looks like. They can actually take a look at that. That's not happening right now. There is a system out there that it's called the Collector. It's a GIS, Geographical Information Systems product. It is cumbersome at best, and it is slowing down the process of validating the construction. Google has personally, the program manager has personally asked me about this product and inquired about our development stages. They want something better out there. They have multiple companies out there that have tried different versions of everybody's inspection services. It's not working for them. They want something that's, one, that's live, two, that they can see no matter where they're at, whether he's working remotely or whether he's working here in Kansas City. He wants to be able to check on construction. He wants to be able to, walk into the marketing department and say, here's what we did today. And they can show, either still photos or a video of the entire process as it's getting validated. The other thing is material consumption is a huge issue. First 6 months of this year, the EPC contractor lost $600,000 worth of material. Main reason is that they get out there in the field and they start putting stuff in the ground and they lose track of, this piece got cut off here, this piece got cut off here, this didn't get done, and this reel of cable or fiber or conduit gets turned back in and nobody bothered to track it. One of the other I don't know if that's the right one. Go ahead.
Mark, we've got another question here in the middle after
Okay.
that slide.
Sorry.
But we can just jump to this question now.
So let me see if I understand what your system is. You basically measure with it. You take video or still imagery with it.
Yes.
You have a tablet that allows the user to maybe annotate the information.
Yes.
And is there anything else?
Well, it's a forced process. Again, one of the issues that you have is you have guys like me that have been in the industry for 30 years. I've done it. I was trained by my grandfather. Okay, maybe not the best process now. So you have guys like that out there in the field that have opinion-based inspection process. This will have a dashboard in it that has a drop-down menu. You get to position A, you start your service, you start your wheel, you start your measuring. It tracks that from position A to position B. And you get to position A and it says, is this vault placed correctly? Yes. Is this the correct vault?
So in the software world, we might call it structured, a structured process that the engineer, whoever is operating this, is required to use.
Yes.
So that the data flowing back to whoever is collecting the data has it all in an organized way where different styles of expression have been removed so that the data can all be looked at in a systematic fashion, maybe even in an automated fashion. Is that correct?
Correct. That's
Now,
exactly
one,
what we're trying to
one of the slides that you had there showed GPR, which is ground penetrating radar. So do you work with ground penetrating radar as well?
We have, and we are trying to convince the MSOs, the owners, that as part of the process, this would be a good way for them to judge whether or not their product is being placed in the ground correctly. I don't know that they've seen the benefit of it yet, but I believe we can show them that.
Okay, my personal opinion, ground penetrating radar doesn't work all the time.
Right.
So that's one of the biggest concerns I think that a company wanting to invest in that aspect of it would have, because these systems are pretty expensive.
Yeah, they're extremely expensive and they're cumbersome at best to use. The operators have to be very, very skilled and be able, and that's
Right.
where opinion comes back into it, is that when they're reading that readout in different soil conditions, it gets confusing to most people, and if they're not an experienced operator, and that's why Time Warner,
Right.
AT&T, Google
So,
doesn't
so
want to use it
getting
all the
back
time.
to what you do, just reading the description here in our sheet, you assist in the construction process by doing certain supervisory activities on behalf of the owner, essentially, or in behalf of the primary contractor.
Correct.
And so, tell me how much of this you do, and why what you are doing is going to pay off for the Googles of the world.
By streamlining the process of inspection, well, first, I'll go to the first part of it, is the amount we do. Right now we have 23 people on this project here locally. And we have a small construction division that works on private jobs other than Google or AT&T. So of that, we have 6 full-time, what they call hood inspectors. Every section of this particular build is broken out into neighborhoods, okay? And whether it's Brookstone or, doesn't matter. And each one of those hood inspectors is in charge of this particular hood. There may be 4 or 5 crews in that hood. That hood inspector watches the construction process as it goes through. And his or her main function is to make sure that the contractor, one, does it to the specifications set out in the spec book. Google has a certain requirement for how deep it is, how things are placed, where you place them in people's yards, and that's their primary responsibility, to make sure that gets done and to facilitate the construction when issues arise with either homeowners or right-of-ways or easements. That's their job. That's what the hood inspector's job is. The secondary part of the people that we have are the quality assurance and validation people. Their job is to go back through after the hood inspector says, we've completed the construction in this area, it's ready for review. So they go back through and review what has happened in that area, and they're the ones that are going to notate whether or not there's a deficiency in whether the pipe has been placed correctly, the correct number of pipes have been placed, whether the fiber's in place, whether all the specifications that are laid out in the spec book have been adhered to, and make sure that the neighborhood is cleaned up and back to whatever the city wants. And what the process we're doing here right now, that's, again, like I said, there's a large opinion-based. You have a spec book, and it's written in black and white, and everybody says follow the spec book, follow the process. But after we do that process, there's a secondary company called Icon Engineering on this particular project that I'm talking about that comes through. And once again, you have opinion-based inspectors out there. Justin or one of my other inspectors might go through and say, yeah, that looks fine, it's to spec. And this guy comes through, well, the angle's not quite right, and he'll fail it for construction. We're trying to take that out of it. We're trying to put a dashboard into this, a video of it. That way, when those issues do come up, and that opinion-based part of the inspection conflicts, that you have a record to go to. Once that record is established, I don't think that you won't have those kind of conflicts in the field anymore. You'll have a more seamless approach to the system, and material management will be better, because when you start this process and you use the wheel to measure from distance from here to here, you know exactly what you have, okay? And that goes live onto a GIS database, and it tells them, you know, that Google, this is what I need to pay for. They put 500 feet of pipe from point A to point B. When, I don't know how many of you have done engineering on any construction projects, but engineering in the office and engineering in the field are two different things. It may look like 600 feet or may measure out to 600 feet on the blueprint, but in actuality, when you get out in the field, it's 584 feet. Not a big difference, but over hundreds and thousands of miles, that adds up. And that's one of the reasons why we lose a lot of material on this project. It's one of the reasons that Google and AT&T are currently searching for a better process. One, to cut their cost, and two, to more accurately forecast for their upcoming cities.
Question on your left.
We're in the process of developing a database to go along with the wheel, but again, we're in development stages of it.
It always amazes me, I'm over here.
Oh, sorry.
It always amazes me when I see those ditch witches shooting along. How far will they shoot lines?
The one that my company owns,
Yeah.
about 500 feet. They
Okay.
have them that can go 5,000 feet.
All right, so you come out ahead of time, you measure the 500 feet. They come in, they run their line, and then you come back again with that,
Right.
correct? How accurate is the second time compared to the ditch witch, what it did?
I've had many of operator and construction crew come back and tell me they put 600 feet in today, only to find out they did 490 when you actually come out with this. And it varies greatly with wheels too.
Okay. All right,
When we're out there GPSing with like a Trimble system, I know I'm getting into the technical end of it, but you're talking about a very accurate GPS system, and it might cut it by 2 or 3 feet from a wheel that is, instead of the old-fashioned wheels have a clicker on the side that just tick, 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 like that. This is it's got a magnetomical reader, just like a
Well,
oh,
the question I have is, if you come in with another digital wheel on a third time, how accurate will that be?
I think it'll
readout
be
compared to the first and second time,
less than a percentage.
less than 1%.
Yeah, we've done it both with, again, we have these, when we're designing electrical systems, it's much more, the necessity for accuracy is greater. So we have a True Pulse system that ties in with the Trimbles that when we're deciding where the poles go. And we use, right now, just this week, we've been out in the field testing with that True Pulse system and this wheel, deciding which one is the most accurate, and we're inches off. So you're talking about an extremely accurate laser and GPS system versus this wheel, and less than a percentage.
And going back to my last question, on the ditch witch, you're able to do the elevation underground.
Right.
If you want 3 foot or 3 foot, 4 inches, you can do that with a ditch witch.
Yes.
Blows my mind.
Got another question for you here in the back, in the middle.
Okay.
Could your process that you're developing apply to other industries like pipeline or just construction in general? And if so, if it's inspection that you do, could it prevent accidents such as, for instance, when the company bumped into a gas line here a couple years ago at JJ's?
Part of the system that we're proposing to Google is an RFID system on their pipeline or their pipes that are in the ground, And that's the gentleman that talked about the inaccuracy of GPR, okay? GPR, ground penetrating and retaining radar, is accurate to a certain extent depending on soil conditions and depending on interference in the area. So in a situation like JJ's downtown, where you have hundreds of different lines and pipelines and water lines and electrical lines, you have a lot of interference, so the accuracy goes away. By putting in an RFID system, or tracer line is what they do now, it increases that accuracy, but it doesn't get it to the point where it's perfect, okay? The gas companies strive to be more accurate with their locating than pretty much anyone else, because it's, between it and power, that's the most life-threatening system that's in the ground, okay? And then obviously, you don't want to, get anywhere near those or touch them, or, and service disruption on those is also more catastrophic. Just, this time of year, you cut somebody's gas line, it's a catastrophic event for them. So the RFID system, yes, that will help. This will help in the process as far as the video of showing where it's at, but as far as being in the ground, no, that does not do anything, just the RFID system.
Question on your left.
So is this an inspection process that takes place concurrently with pushing the pipe or the line? Or is this, after you push 500 feet of line, the next day the engineer goes out and walks that path to make sure that it was done correctly? I have a part 2 to this question as well.
It can be both, actually. It can be used as they're doing it to monitor construction and catch delta points. So you go, a pipe package goes in the ground at point A with 4 pipes in it, and the second point that pipe exits the ground is 500 feet away, except for, you got 4 different pipes. The third pipe at 250 feet is supposed to be coupled and go across the street. So you have a delta point there. So that's one of the things where material consumption gets to be an issue, is because the inspector out in the field would say, okay, we got 500 feet of pipe we did from point A to point B, but they'd miss that delta point, and that shot going across the road never gets done. So later on, when Google or Time Warner or anybody goes to turn that system on, it tells the customer, yeah, your system is ready, you got a drop, there's a pipe ready for you, we'll just have to run a drop to you, we can establish service. And that piece is missed. Well, if you use this, and you actually use the dashboard system, and you locate that pipe, part of it will come up as a red flag at the end of the day and say, hey, what about this location? We don't have a GPS on this location. We don't have a pipe from this point A to point B. Yep, you do have it from here, but the piece going across the road is missing. That's what this is designed to catch. One of the things it's designed to catch on the forward construction part. And then obviously all the aspects of it that we talked about on the post-construction is just verification of that everything did get done right.
Sure. The reason I ask and what's motivating the question is I'm in the electronics manufacturing business. And in our industry, the mindset is that you should never try to inspect quality into a product.
Right.
If you're inspecting quality into a product, you find defects, you have to do rework, and rework is fundamentally non-value added activity. So the alternative mindset is then process control and process monitoring. You bring your process into control, you ensure that your process is building quality product to begin with, and then if inspection is done, it's done merely to qualify the process rather than to make sure, okay, did you build it right to begin with? So my question then, this is manufacturing on a large scale. Mm-hmm. Does this device support a process control approach to laying pipe as opposed to a quality inspection process, where as the pipe is being put into the ground, the crew can learn in real time, oh shoot, we forgot to make that delta 200 feet to the left, do it now instead of waiting till the end of the day or the next day when they have to bring the equipment out and do it all over again and pull pipe and fix the problem. Does your product support that process monitoring, process control approach to this industry?
You've got 60 seconds to answer that, Mark.
Yes, it does. That's quality assurance. That's what I stressed at the beginning of it. Instead of quality control is after the fact. We don't want to be quality control. We want to be quality assurance. We want to make sure that the product is done right the first time. And the validation process will, again, be streamlined by that. If you make sure it's done at the time, getting that customer, getting that contractor paid later on is not a problem.
Mark, thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you.
out and presenting. That's all the time we have today, but we've got one quick final question for you.
All right.
And I know you didn't have much time to prepare for this one, but maybe you've got an answer, and that is, as a community, what can we do to help you?
I'm mostly get the word out that there is a better system out there. I know that one of the things I hear from people out in the field when I'm walking through people's yards and we're looking at the plant and stuff like that is, when am I getting this? When am I getting this? When am I getting this? And, you know, it basically depends on how fast we can get the pipe in the ground, get it validated, get it verified that everything's correct, and get it to the customer. So, you know, getting the word out that there's a better system, you know, and I believe in this system, I really do. I mean, we've tried it on a small scale without the actual backup of the database, and it works. The EPC contractor is in the process right now. Just ask me for more people to do this. You know,
All right.
I don't-
Excellent. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Well, we want to thank everyone for coming out to 1 Million Cups today. If you are here for the meeting afterwards, if you're interested in becoming a part of the team, please stick around. At 10:15, we're going to run over to the labs and just kind of sit down with you for a few minutes and give you some details about that. Our presenters typically are here down towards the front. If you've got more questions that they weren't able to get to during the presentation, please stop by and say hello to them. Thank you. See you next week.